We've all missed some things during this time of the shutdown, things that we haven't been able to attend, things that haven't gone on. But that first Easter in the evening, Thomas missed something big. The other disciples were together, and then Jesus appeared. But it says Thomas wasn't there with him. And we're not really told why, but talk about a bad time to be missing. But it ends up being something good that came out of it. Because it says in the Bible, in the Gospel of John, chapter 20, it tells the story, and it says that the next week, then they were together, and Thomas, he had been skeptical, he had been doubting, and he had said, unless I see the nail marks in the hands, and I put my finger where his side, where the piercing was, unless I put my hand into his side, I'm not going to believe. He needed to have proof. Then the next week, Thomas is with the disciples, and Jesus appeared again. And Jesus gives this proof to Thomas. He shows him his hands and his side, and then Thomas comes and he says, "My Lord and my God." It seemed like a terrible thing that Thomas missed. But we can look back and we can see that good came out of that, and we can be thankful in a way that Thomas was missing that first time. Because it ends up showing Jesus' grace that he comes, and a second time he comes to for Thomas. And it also shows that Jesus was able to give convincing proof to this doubter. And that can help us to be sure that if Jesus could convince Thomas, then it must be sure, must be real. It's something that we can believe in. If Thomas was able to be convinced, we can be convinced as well. And so good came out of that, even though it at the time must have seemed like a disaster that Thomas was missing. During this time of the virus and everything, I've been thinking about in Romans chapter 8 and verse 28, where it talks about in that verse that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. It is not saying all things are good, but what he's really getting at is that in all things God is doing good work. In the virus causing damage to people, in causing all the trouble it's causing, it's not a good thing. But in the midst of all this, God's doing some good work. There's families that have been spending time together that usually they'd be running all over the place, busy with all kinds of activities, and now during these days they've spent some time together. It's a good thing. A lot of us have maybe had more time in prayer than we've had for a while, and that's a good thing. There are people who, because of all that's going on in the world, they're looking for hope, they're looking for peace, and there's people who are seeking after the Lord. And that most definitely is a good thing. I would encourage you to pray for eyes that might see good things that God's doing. There weren't egg hunts on Easter, not too many at least, as usual. But usually at Easter, there's these big Easter egg hunts. I can admit, when I was a kid, I didn't do real well at Easter egg hunts. I probably didn't have real motivation because I knew I was only going to eat however much candy my mom let me eat, so it didn't matter how many eggs I got. But I just didn't see the eggs that well sometimes when we'd go looking for eggs. In a similar way, we at times don't see the good that God's doing. And we need to pray that God would give us eyes to see that in the midst of trials, in the midst of hard things, God is still doing good. And I pray that you, and I pray that I too, we'd have eyes that would see good that God is doing all around us. And we give thanks that he's a gracious God, and we can trust that he's always doing good. Thanks.